Some brutally honest feedback on Scarlet and Violet when it comes to sealed investing and the sets themselves. Hey, this is part 2. I really recommend you watch part 1 first, where we went from Scarlet and Violet base all the way through to Temporal Forces. And today's video, we're going from Twilight Masquerade all the way through to Destined Rivals. We're going to look at the sets, we're going to look at the investability of them, what's good about them, what's bad about them, what could have been done better, and just essentially rank them and rate them. And look, this is some just brutally honest feedback from myself. Now, I get it, you know, Pokemon card sets, like there's lots of arguments, and I went over this in part 1, so I don't want to rehash it again for the next 2 minutes, but I'll briefly touch on it. Look, Pokemon card sets aren't just made for investors. Like, they're not. There's 2 parts to Pokemon cards. There is collectability, like it is made to be a collectible card game, but then it's also made to be played. So, you know, cards are made for the player base as well. And look, collectability is where the investability comes from. There's such a clear line there. Like it's clearly spelled out. Like the more collectible the cards are, the more collectible the sets are, the more investable they are because people value them. That's where it comes from. So look, I get it. It's not all about investors, not at all. But this is putting the investing lens over the top of Scarlet and Violet and having a look at what are good sets. So let's just jump straight into it. The next set off the bat is Twilight Masquerade. Now, interestingly, here's my take on it, right? So Scarlet and Violet base come out, and look, it's a better base set than, of course, Sword and Shield base. And then we look at the second set, Paldea Evolve. Someone will write some silly comment down below about how I pronounce that. And it was a better set than Rebel Clash. And we started going, well, hold on, Scarlet and Violet's really gaining some steam. You know, there was a little bit of a lull in the hobby around the time. You know, it was off this all-time high from COVID and sets like Evolving Skies and Celebration, and then it sort of come back down to earth at the start of Scarlet and Violet, and things relatively accessible, relatively cheap booster boxes and booster packs. But everyone was aware that it was better than Sword and Shield. And everyone was going, well, hold on, you know, when's the next Evolving Skies coming out? You know, maybe it's mid-era. Maybe mid-era we're going to get the next Evolving Skies. And then, you know, 151 come out and it was fantastic, particularly in Japanese. And, you know, it missed a few tricks in English, but the nostalgia train, it'll just ride those coattails forever and be a successful investment. And then, you know, we got to sets like Paradox Rift and Temporal Forces, and everyone's going, okay, yeah, the artwork's getting pretty damn good in these sets, but you know, where's our big hits? Where's our big chase cards? You know, the next Evolving Skies must be around the corner. And then Twilight Masquerade got launched and everyone was like, well, hold on. During middle of Sword and Shield, everything was starting to really ramp up. You know, we were getting phenomenal Pokemon card sets like Fusion Strike and Evolving Skies, and Celebrations was about to come out, which is, of course, homage to the 25th anniversary of the whole TCG. And look, there's nothing wrong with Twilight Masquerade. I've said all along, I think it's like a B/B+ set. The Greninja is personally a fan favorite of mine. I think it's a fantastic special illustration rare. Other people can hate on it all they want about it's too messy and too colorful, but I really like the artwork. I think it's cool. I think it's a good looking card, and it's something I'd love to have in a PSA 10 as part of my collection, but I don't really collect singles all that much. However, I think it's a good card, and I think, you know, we've got 2 waifus inside there with Carmine, etc. Like, there's some good looking cards inside there. The masks don't do anything for me, but I suppose the point I'm trying to make here is it was just like, well, hold on, you've got a license to do whatever you want, and it's time to start ramping things up, especially after the lull we had at the start of Scarlet and Violet. It's like, why didn't you hit us between the eyes with a phenomenal Pokemon card set? And they just didn't. Like, it was good, and I think the Greninja surprised everyone. In fact, it even surprised me of how well it came out of the gate. And I'm not saying Twilight Masquerade is going to be a bad investment. I think it's actually going to be a pretty damn good investment. The sealed booster box will perform really well. The elite trainer boxes will go up in value. I don't think they will go up in the same rate as the booster box. I think the booster box is the better investment from Twilight Masquerade. And then it was like, okay, now comes the next holiday set, which is Shrouded Fable, and once again everyone was like, whoa, this feels like a little bit of a letdown. But oddly enough, you know, the supply of this set, it wasn't rolled out quite successfully, and everyone was waiting on product. Like, they really wanted to open some Pokemon cards. It's like Pokemon started gaining a lot of steam again, almost like it was the mid 2020s again, or start of 2021 when everything was just going gangbusters. But again, Shrouded Fable come out, and it's like, it's the 3rd holiday set from the era, and it's, you know, the 4th if we take into consideration Prismatic Evolutions, and the 5th if we take in Black and White, which isn't out yet. And It's clearly the worst holiday set from Scarlet and Violet. That's just my personal opinion. Other people might think differently. We've got 2 gold cards as the most expensive cards sitting up there. There's a lot of playability to this set, and that's where most of the cards I feel get their value. Are there any good artworks or good collectible cards inside here? Personally, I really like the Persian. I think the Dusk Skull, Dust Noir, I think they're good looking cards. I think the Houndoom's a good looking card, but are there going to be any expensive chase cards down the track from this set? Probably not. Doesn't mean it's not going to be investable. No. I mean, look at a set like Dragon Majesty, just to, I suppose, give a little bit of a comparison. You know, when Dragon Majesty came out, it was the same thing. Everyone was going, you had the chance to absolutely pop off here. Like, you literally called it a dragon-based set. And look what you've put in here for us. Like, where's the chase cards? Where's the fun in it? It's a holiday set based around dragons, and we're not getting any. And it's like, well, look at the Elite Trainer box price now. That thing is absolutely gangbusters. I'm not saying Shrouded Fable is going to do what Dragon Majesty has done. What I'm saying is, just because a set comes out of the gate and it looks a bit lackluster and maybe the fan feedback towards a set is quite weak, doesn't mean it's not going to perform well and become an expensive investment down the track. Now, look, a lot of things come into play here. You know, what are the print runs like? You know, obviously Dragon Majesty is probably going to be printed a lot less than what something like a Shrouded Fable's printed, but it's still, the point still remains though that could be a good investment. And the other point still remains that it's like, we're well and truly deep into the era of Scarlet and Violet, and it still felt like everyone was hanging out for that next big set. And the greed for the product was really starting to step up. In fact, the pre-orders for the next set, Stellar Crown, they were insane. The pre-orders for that across multiple stores and store owners I talked to, whether it's online or face-to-face, was everyone just wanted Pokemon card product around this time. And there we go. Like, it was just getting crazy, wasn't it? And Stellar Crown came out of the gate, and for that reason, a lot of the chase cards, especially that rainbow bordered Terapagos. And this is where we started, you know, I think the rainbow border come into play, of course, in this set. And they were good looking cards. And then we had the beautiful Squirtle and Bulbasaur to finish off that trio with the Charmander promo that came from Obsidian Flames. And look, everyone's appetite for this product was good. Pull rates all of a sudden changed. And I just don't get that. I don't get why they keep changing pull rates. That doesn't make a heap of sense to me. And look, I'm not saying they have to be seeded the exact same for every set, but to have massive discrepancies, and look, you know, set size of course comes into play here. Stellar Crown was a relatively small set. Look at the booster box price now of Stellar Crown. That's eclipsed, has it eclipsed $200 now, US dollars? And it's just like, whoa, like, where does that come from? I suppose it comes from lack of supply at the moment. Is Stellar Crown going to be a good investment down the track? Probably not, but it's Pokemon and Stellar Crown, and everyone goes crazy for Scarlet and Violet at the moment, so it could well and truly surprise me. And look, booster boxes, in my opinion, aren't going to be a bad investment in any way, any sense of the word. It's so funny because when we go back to Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon and further back from that, you know, every set, like there was more main sets, there's more booster box sets, and now it seems we get this overtaking effect when it comes to holiday sets where it's just like there's more holiday sets than there are main sets. And is that going to be the case in the future? Is that because Pokemon profit more off ancillary products like Elite Trainer boxes and 3-pack blisters and collection boxes? And people have this insatiable appetite to open packs, and well, the only way to get them is to buy more product, really. You know, you can't buy that dense 36-pack booster box to get product to open. You got to buy more ancillary products. And is that more profit for the company? Quite possibly. Is that the reason they're doing it? Quite possibly. Look, it's anecdotal evidence, but you know, it could well be the case. Now, before we jump on to the next one, Surging Sparks, just wanted to give a shout out to today's video sponsor, which is of course the Collector app. Hey, if you don't have it, there'll be a link in the description to download it. Fantastic app. I've been using it for a long time. You can put all your sealed and singles collection in there. The big one now is it has set analytics, so you can look at total set value for any given set from the Pokemon TCG, which is a really important metric when it comes to measuring the investability of the set. You can also sign up to be a pro member, which unlocks some cool features on the app and also gives you access to going in the draw to winning big prizes each month. So fantastic app there, specifically for a collector, and more so for this channel, of course, the investor. So again, link in the description to download that one. Now we're starting to pick up some steam, aren't we? Because Surging Sparks comes out, and the appetite, talk about the appetite. This is when products started to get really, really hard to get. And Surging Sparks come out of the gate absolutely dominating. The Pikachu, love it or hate it, come out of the gate really, really hot as an expensive raw card and a stupidly expensive PSA 10 card. I can't believe pricing people were paying for that early on as a PSA 10. What? Like, why? Just wait a couple of months and you'd be able to buy it for half the price that you bought it in the first week of launch. That just makes no sense. And there's a very important investing tip if you're into singles. Don't buy something straight out of the gate. Like, it's just way too expensive. Why is it expensive? Because there's less supply in the market. There's less PSA 10 copies. Do you ever think, here's a question, do you ever think PSA 10 copies will decrease? No, they don't. They only go one direction, which is up. And look, that's going to slow down as supply obviously dries up, but inevitably, they go up. And as that happens across time, generally speaking, they go down. Now, that's not always the case. Maybe the set goes out of rotation and maybe people feel like the PSA 10 population is starting to cap off, like Umbreon VMAX, for argument's sake, from Evolving Skies, and therefore we start seeing increases in price because there's more demand for that card than what there is supply as it starts to dwindle. But as the set first comes out, the general rule of thumb is PSA 10 prices will plummet quite quickly. So crazy that people were spending, over $2,000 for argument's sake on a PSA 10 Pikachu from Surging Sparks. Beautiful set in my opinion. It's one of the best booster boxes from the whole Scarlet and Violet era. Look, I don't think it's quite as good as Destined Rivals. I think there's some fantastic chase cards inside there. I think there's good depth to it. I think the pull rates are difficult enough. I think there's enough good Pokemon inside there, like fan favorite Pokemon, of course, with the Pikachu, the Latias, the Milotic, the Hydreigon. It's a good enough set. I think it's going to be a strong performer as a booster box. I certainly wouldn't be scared to pick it up. The Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box with the Shinji Kanda Magneton inside there will also be a great pickup. So there's some really good sealed product to pick up from Surging Sparks. I do rate it as one of the better, if not top 3 booster boxes from the whole Scarlet and Violet era to invest in. Now the next one, Prismatic Evolutions. Here we go. The biggest and best the biggest and best holiday set we've seen from Scarlet and Violet. Now look, 151 might be a better investment. Look, I think it's neck and neck between these two holiday sets. 151 has the nostalgia coattails to just ride on, and it'll do that forever and a day. It's a good Pokemon card set. Is it as good as Prismatic Evolutions? On paper, looking at total set value and looking down the hits, you would argue it's not. Prismatic Evolutions, in my opinion, is the better Pokemon card set. Look, pull rates are tough on Prismatic Evolutions. Total set value, of course, is actually trending downwards on Prismatic Evolutions as more and more supply comes out. We were told from the get-go it's going to be a staggered launch, so expect more product to come from Prismatic Evolutions. But down the track, this will be a stellar Pokemon card set, and it'll be a stellar investment. If you can get your hands on an Elite Trainer box, a Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box, any of those bigger products with high pack density, I think they're going to be fantastic investments in the long run. This is just a good Pokemon card set. In fact, arguably the best we've seen so far from Scarlet and Violet. Coupled with the whole evolutions, a few more special illustration rares inside there that are really nice cards, coupled with the fact it's the first English set to get Pokeball and Master Ball reverse holos inside there. It felt like finally Pokemon actually put all their effort into a set and said, we're going to make this damn good. And look, I think they did. Are some of the cards going to hold up to that price? Like, what's Palafin EX as a special illustration? That's like $50 odd. Does that really deserve to be a $50 card? Probably not. So I think total set value will trend downwards a little bit, and maybe it'll rebound back up in a year or two once all that supply sort of gets eaten up. But there we go. I think that's a fantastic investment if you can grab it. Where are we up to now? We must be up to Journey Together. And look, I think Journey Together is a slightly better Pokemon card set than people give it credit for. The box topper, or the reintroduction of box topper, the reintroduction of an old game mechanic back from Wizards of the Coast era. There's all this nostalgia, it seems, throughout Scarlet and Violet era, and none of it's a bad thing, I don't think. Journey Together, Lily's Clefairy is a phenomenal looking Pokemon card. Salamence, that is an awesome looking Pokemon card. And what about Big Wailord, eh? Just floating bobbing in the water there. Like, there's some cool looking cards in there, slightly smaller set, but cool looking cards inside this set. I think it's actually going to be an underrated investment as a booster box. I'm personally going to grab some more booster boxes as soon as I feel like they're at the right price for me to grab them. So I think it's a good Pokemon card set. And finally, Destined Rivals. I know we got Black and White to come down the track, but Destined Rivals. This is some brutally honest feedback for Destined Rivals. Look, it might be, and this is probably a harsh explanation, the best of a bad bunch. And I don't mean the best of a bad bunch. Bad's probably not the right word. It's the best of an average bunch of booster boxes from the whole Scarlet and Violet era. Like, same thing. They just, in my opinion, just missed some tricks. Like if you're going to bring back Team Rocket, which is fantastic, do it properly. I'm not saying it's done badly. It's done pretty well, and it's a good enough Pokemon card set. Arguably, it's probably the best booster box in the whole Scarlet and Violet era. And the booster boxes that got Team Rocket on there, they'll climb up in price rapidly. They will. In 10 years' time, they'll be expensive booster boxes. You've got special illustration rares, like, of course, the Mewtwo, the Nidoking. Like, there's some good nostalgia thrown in with some modern takes on illustration rares and special illustration rares. However, keeping in mind we had 2 other Rocket sets before this. We obviously had the original Team Rocket with cards like, Dark Raichu as, the first secret rare, Dark Blastoise, Dark Gyarados. We had EX Team Rocket Returns, which is one of my favorite Pokemon card sets of all time, where we had, Dragonites and Scythers and like, why? Why aren't we seeing more of those? Why did we get like Team Rocket's Crobat and Team Rocket's Raticate? It's like, it doesn't make heaps of sense. It's like base set when they made like Clefairy a rare. Like it doesn't make heaps of sense. Put the big dogs as rare. And if you're going to do Team Rocket, why not have things like light and dark Pokemon thrown in there as well? Imagine having a dark Dragonite or a light Dragonite or a dark Gyarados, or like, I'm not saying pump up the set with just every single rare card you can possibly put into it, but why not? Like, it's like Team Rocket's Mewtwo's sitting up there, and we've got the nice Moltres as well, and then it's just like, well, hold on, like, people are spending big money to get the Crobat, and it's like, look, I'm not saying it's a bad set, bad cards. It just could have been done a touch better, in my opinion. Once again, another trick seems to have been missed. Look, it's going to be a fantastic investment. The more Team Rocket booster boxes for Destined Rivals I can buy, I think the better. I think it's going to perform incredibly well for the long term. There we go. There's the second half of Scarlet and Violet done. I'm Michael. This is Pokey Oz. Catch everyone next time.